This is Chapter 17, World War II, Discussion Number 1, Prelude to World War II. In the late 30s, the tripartite pact of Germany, Japan, and Italy started moving to establish their dominance of their regions of the world. Japan overran Manchuria and eastern China in order to get the raw materials. Italy invaded Ethiopia. Both times, the League of Nations condemned the invasions, but that's pretty much all they did. In fact, and even with Italy, they imposed sanctions on Italy, but they couldn't enforce them, so it was pretty much voluntary. And Italy just went on their merry way, Japan went on their merry way, and essentially no one was listening to the League of Nations. Germany was being appeased to what it wanted because Western leaders were more afraid of what Stalin would do in the Soviet Union than maybe what Hitler could do with Germany. The United States did their best trying to stay out of all these new conflicts with the Axis powers. They passed the Neutrality Acts, which prohibited the selling of weapons to any of the warring nations, and that citizens were barred from sailing on warring nations' vessels. Axis powers such as Germany, Italy, and Japan promised to fight communism, and that got them on somewhat better terms with the Western democracies. And they also promised that they would not interfere with each other's imperial ambitions. As Germany wanted Europe, Italy essentially wanted Africa, and the Japanese wanted the Pacific. However, in the mid-30s, Francisco Franco of Spain started a civil war with the conservatives, and fascist support from Italy and Germany helped him against the nationalists who were being supported by the communists and the socialists, and those who wanted democracy rather than a dictatorship. Franco ended up winning the war and establishing a fascist government in Spain. However, most of what is important about the Spanish Civil War is that a lot of new weapons and a lot of new technology had been developed at the end of World War I. And most of what the Spanish Civil War became was a dress rehearsal, a practice of how could these weapons be used effectively in war, how could they be used effectively together in war, and what were some proper ways of dealing with them. And so the Spanish Civil War did serve a particular function. Now, as Hitler began wanting to get that Lebensraum, that living space, expanding Germany and getting more Germans into the German nation, his first move was to unite Germany with his home country of Austria. And essentially he went around saying, there's a whole bunch of problems in Austria, and the only way it's going to be fixed is if we make them part of Germany. And using some pretenses, he had sent some people into Austria to make trouble. And in order to preserve order, Hitler volunteered to go into Austria and take control of Austria to calm it down. This practically peaceful taking of Austria is referred to as the Anschluss. And what happened? No one said anything. The people, actually did say something, but no one did anything to say that Hitler was out of position. He had no right to do that. Seeing that no one stopped him, Hitler decided to kind of pull the same trick with the western part of Czechoslovakia. He claimed that 3 million Germans who lived in western Czechoslovakia belonged to Germany, and that they ought to be part of Germany. And so he and his military walked into western Czechoslovakia and took the Sudetenland. And again, they were so desperate to avoid war. They had remembered World War I and the senseless destruction. European powers were so desperate to avoid war, they would rather not fight to preserve the countries of Czechoslovakia and the country of Austria, that they said, okay, if Hitler says that's all he's going to want, then that's, okay, Hitler promises, we'll live with that because we don't want to go to war over this. However, people were getting a little bit anxious about Hitler, and so they asked Hitler to join them in a meeting. It happened in Munich. The British Prime Minister, Neville Chamberlain, the French leader, Eduardo Daladier, and Hitler all got together, and Hitler essentially said, I have expanded Germany to where Germany ought to be and where it belongs. I promise not to take any more territory. And the Munich conference was declared a victory by the Chamberlain. He called it peace for our time, as he essentially said, we're not going to have war. That's all I want. No war, we win. Hitler, though, had other plans. In 1939, Hitler communicated and negotiated a treaty with Soviet Russia. The Soviets and the Nazis signed a pact saying that we like each other, we're not going to fight each other, and they drew a line essentially through Eastern Europe saying this half will be Germany and this half will be Soviet Russia, and this is what it's going to be. The pact was called the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact. Molotov was the foreign minister of the Soviet Russia, and Ribbentrop was the foreign secretary for the German government. And essentially, this was signed in August of 1939, which is highly significant because in September 1st of 1939, Germany attacks Poland, and Russia moves in through Eastern Europe in order to get its promised territory. And September 1st, 1939 is recognized to be the official beginning of World War II. This concludes discussion number 1, Prelude to World War II.